Hi, I'm Rick Anthony, and welcome to the Someone You Should Know podcast, the podcast that focuses on musicians, authors, and interesting people. We like to say we're making a difference one artist at a time. So sit back, have a cold one, and get ready to meet someone you should know. Quite the treat on the podcast today, a very talented bass guitarist who's played with some legendary artists of all time. He was also the tour manager of a brand new inductee into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Would you please put your hands together for Mr. Dave Fowler? Dave, welcome aboard.
Thank you, Rick. I appreciate being here today, and I know it was a little bit of a task to pull my schedule into the realm of possibility. So thank you for your flexibility and your patience.
Not a problem at all. He is touring with the Artimus Pyle Band. We're going to talk about that in just a bit. But we've got a lot of ground to cover. Dave, you started off in Western North Carolina as a farm boy. When did the music bug hit you?
Man, probably around the age of 13 years old. A lot of people get started much earlier, but I was really into sports. I played football and basketball and mainly baseball. And I was a fairly decent athlete, and I probably could have been great had I really applied myself more. But the music bug kind of got a hold of me. My parents always sang at church, and they always needed a bass player to play with the piano player. And I was like, at that age, I was like, well, it's got 4 strings, so really how hard can it be? So
okay.
Little did I know at that time in my life how bass would evolve to the forefront of modern music, as it did during those times with the birth of new funk and R&B and soul music and fusion jazz, to where bass players like Stanley Clarke were stepping up front, fronting bands, because that had really not been heard of until then. So lucky for me,
Absolutely. It's strange, Dave. My daughter started off in about the age of 13. She's in her 40s now, and she's got a band in St. Louis, but she was a bassist also. She started off on the bass. I believe it was a jazz bass when we first got for her. I'll never forget. She came out of her room on Christmas Day, throwing down a couple of. This is during the time of grunge and stuff. So she's throwing down, some Chili Peppers. She's throwing down some Jane's Addiction and such. But I'll never forget bass instruments. First thing that she started off on. Like I say, you played with some legendary bands. Let's go back to the very first beginning. What was the very name of the first band that you played in? Can you remember?
Well, yes, I do. I was working at Ingles Markets, and I had played, in a gospel group at that point, which we only played Western North Carolina and a little bit in East Tennessee. Not much, but it was called the Bill Fuller Singers, and that was where I really got my feet wet, got a lot of the basics under my belt. And then after that, I was working at Ingles Markets, which is a huge local grocery store chain here in the Carolinas and East Tennessee and Southern Virginia. And I was working there, and a guy had approached me named Will. I'll think of it in a minute, but he had a band called Foxfire. So he said, if you could come play the Moose Lodge with me, I can pay you $50. Well, it took, that was a hard day's work at Ingles all day to make, $40. So I figured I'd go play for 3 hours and make $50. And I was like, yeah, this is probably going to be for me. So the intent at the time is not money, because it's fun for you. A lot of musicians get into it because they love it. But as you get into it, you begin to do it for money, the luster can wear off. But luckily for me, I still love what I do. I'm still fortunate that I get to do what I do. And the one thing I would like people to know about me more than anything is how incredibly grateful I am to still be doing it.
Right. You've been doing this this has been over 40 years now, right?
It's been right at 40 years. I decided that I would turn professional at 19 years old, and I will be 60 in June.
Awesome. Very
So
good.
I have, and I'm still doing it. This is what I do.
Awesome. Very good. Yeah, I just wrapped up a 40-plus year radio career, and that's why I'm doing the podcast. It's kind of like my nicotine patch to get me through the bug of going back on the radio. Now, you've played with some legendary country musicians, the Statler Brothers, Lorrie Morgan, the late, great Dottie West, just to name a few, but you were also the tour manager of a new inductee into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, this lovely lady by the name of Dolly Parton. For those for our listeners who are not sure exactly the role of a tour manager, can you kind of go into that just a little bit before we talk a little bit about Dolly?
Sure. They all vary a little bit, depending on the artist you work with. Dolly was a little different because, we had almost 40 people on the road. So it took more than me to manage it. You have like 3 different tour managers, and they all have their specific areas that they deal with. I handled the band, which was 11 members, all wonderful people that had been with her forever. So it consists of everything of, when you get to the gig, making sure your bus has ample parking, to shore power to the bus, which means you don't run the generator all day. You hook it up to shore power so that you can have heating or air for the day, and making sure the trash is emptied, make sure your driver gets to the hotel to get the ample rest, make sure that you schedule his pickup time. And in a lot of cases, you deal with the money, you do the tour accounting as well. It comes with the job. Now, I didn't have to do that with Dolly, but there are a lot of acts that I tour manager, like Billy Bob Thornton. When I did Billy Bob's tours, I was the bass player and the tour manager and the tour accountant, and I was responsible for everything. So it comes with a tremendous amount of responsibility. And I was always that guy. I grew up real poor. My dad was just a blue-collar worker, and so he wasn't able to give me a lot, but he did give me the work ethic. Right. And I'm a firm believer. I have a little boy that's 12. I'm just a firm believer that if you give a child a great work ethic, then I think that the rest they'll kind of find their way if they're willing to work.
Oh, so real good. What was it like working for Dolly, though? I mean, just the idea of just working with just that legendary. Well, she was back in there. This was in the early days. This is the post Porter Wagner days, and actually breaking out on her own about the time that. Let me see. You started right after the Kenny Rogers thing, right?
No, I didn't start with her till the mid 2000s.
Oh, mid 2000s. Okay, yeah. So she was well established by then. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, yeah. She had, at that point, Dolly had been really wanting her, as everyone knows about her, because she grew up in the Smoky Mountains. She has a very deep love for bluegrass music. And at the late 90s, early 2000s, her heart was still really in that. And in all honesty, believe it or not, at this point, Dolly was, she was struggling to probably sell 3,000 tickets at that point, because that's the music she was doing. She didn't have the proper team around her. And it was just kind of a little bit of a difficult time. And then she began to surround herself with other people and brought other people on board and that kind of thing. And, went back into the full Dolly thing, with all her hits that she had through the years, 9 to 5, of course, Here You Come Again, all that stuff. And Kent Wells is her producer and her guitar player for many, many years. And Kent is my business partner and one of my very best friends. He got a position for me over there as a tour manager, and I was very happy to get it. It came along at a time I really needed it. And so I did that. The reason that I did not get asked to play bass on the tour is I don't play upright.
Okay. Yeah. Because
the world's worst upright player. And I don't have any interest in playing upright. I've devoted my life to playing electric bass, and that's what I like to do.
Mm-hmm. Understand.
And it's what I do. It is what I do. I'm not the best. I don't want to be the best. I don't want that pressure. And I'm not going to put the time in to be the best. I just do what I do. And fortunately, people hire me because they like what I do. So I'm, again, grateful for that.
And some of those people include Bill Simzik, who produced the Eagles. You've led a really blessed life.
Man, I have. Yeah, Bill is a wonderful human being, very warm. And I only got to work with Bill one time on a project. But in true Bill fashion, we took our time. We only cut like 5 tracks, I think, but we took an entire week to do 5 tracks because he has a very specific way that he does things. And we did this. Keith Stegall, who is a big name in Nashville, record guy and producer himself, had interest in these three different guys, and he thought all of them were individually strong, but he didn't think any one of them had what it would take to get to be a superstar. But he thought together they could be, a country version, if you will, of the Eagles. So that's where he sought out Bill to produce their EP, and I got to be a part of that. Joe Vitale played drums. Joe played with, he's the drummer on Rocky Mountain Way with Walsh. And so here I am sitting between Simzik and Joe Vitale, a bright-eyed boy from North Carolina going, how did I get here?
I know sometimes you just wonder about
the tracks
that.
came out great.
Awesome. Very good.
It was great.
Now, you've been with the Artimus Pyle Band for quite a while. When did you guys start together?
They've been together a very long time, which is my bandmates, Jerry Lyda, Scott Rains, and Brad Durden started this thing with Artimus. I honestly couldn't say how many years, close to 20 probably, just since they started jamming and getting together. And then I've been in the band for 6 or 7 years now.
Awesome.
And I was the last guy to join. So we've become a pretty tight-knit unit. The band really strives hard to duplicate the music the way it was in the 70s. I mean, we really pick the parts apart and really refine them, and we make sure that we're trying to get the right sounds, the right instruments, musically get it right, the licks, if you will,
right.
the notes, playing the right notes, because it's an ongoing, never-ending thing, because I'll always figure out that I'm playing something incorrectly.
Well, that's just it. As far as you've got, this Lynyrd Skynyrd library is just huge. There's just so much depth to it, and when you actually have to play it note for note like the records play. The question I have to ask you is, what is it like to get up there and play Freebird every evening?
It's a treat, knowing the legacy that Artimus carries. My bandmates and I take it really seriously. And we want to deliver that to the fans. So playing Freebird every night is just one of many. I mean, but that, of course, that's the height of the night, and it's, and we may not be the best band in the world. We're a pretty good band as far as a band goes. Together, we're a pretty good force.
Awesome.
And it's, I will say, and I don't say this arrogantly at all, but when we open for other bands, like a 38 Special or whoever it is, and we close with Freebird, it's a little hard to follow.
Yeah, I was going to say, because that is one of the legendary tracks that you encore a concert. And if you think of Benny, I mean, you go to any other show, people are saying, one more song, and some people are yelling, it's Freebird, and it's not even a Lynyrd Skynyrd concert. It's just hilarious.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, man. I am really trying to immerse myself in the moment these days every time that we play, because, Artimus will be 75 in July, and he's still, he was a U.S. Marine from 68 to 71, and he's still got a lot of Marine in him. He's very disciplined. He's still in good shape. So I really try to relish every moment, out there, because all things come to an end.
That's true. That's true.
That's what Dolly says at the end of a tour. Well, all good things must come to an end. I will always love you, and here's your pink slip. But she's the best. Oh, while we're on the subject of Freebird and Dolly, I don't know if I've shared with you yet, but you're going to trip on this. I developed a record label with a buddy of mine, Lynn Snow, out of Texas. We started a record label last year. We signed Artimus to a 1-record deal, and the record will be coming out in March, and it's a Lynyrd Skynyrd tribute record. And Dolly sang Freebird with us.
Oh my God, that's incredible! That's incredible.
It's more than incredible, because Ronnie Dunn of Brooks and Dunn sang Sweet Home Alabama. We managed to get Warren Haynes from Government Mule did Saturday Night Special. We managed to get Sammy Hagar did Simple Man.
Wonderful.
And this was all contacts that I've had through the years because I've just been so blessed in this business. And we got some new blood on there. We got a new young guy in country named Michael Ray. He did I Know a Little.
Yeah, I know. Yep.
Chris.
I know the
Yep,
name.
Chris
Know the name well.
Jansen.
Yep, know him too.
Chris Jansen did. Chris Jansen did Curtis Lowe, and Lee Bryce did Working for the MCA, and it's shaping up to be a tremendous record, man. And it will be. You can pre-order it now at artimuspyleband.com. It will be released sometime in March, is all I know. I don't have a release date yet, but I can tell you I heard some of the mixes, and Mark Needham, who is one of the premier mix guys in the music business today. He did The Killers, Imagine Dragons. He works with Stevie Nicks. He's mixing the record for us. And I went to his studio with Kent last week and heard some of the mixes, and people are going to be floored with this record.
Awesome. One thing I got to ask you, you've been in the business for over 40 years, and there's a little thing that we love to include. It's called Tales from the Road. These are those infamous road stories of where things didn't go quite as planned. You get to a gig, and all of a sudden you realize you forgot something. You get there, and you realize you're at the wrong venue. Something that happens on stage, something that happens at your backstage accommodation, something that happens at the hotel. Anything come to mind in your 40-year career is kind of like one of your favorite tales from the road?
Man, there's so many of those. It'd be hard to pick. There's one in particular that does come to mind. Is very early on with Lorrie Morgan. I was the musical director, bass player, and tour manager in the very beginning. And we were playing in Oklahoma. I don't remember where in Oklahoma. But it was a club. And she was just, having hit records, and she was on fire, man. So we go out to play, and I have on new boots, and the drum riser is carpet.
Okay.
So you might see where I'm headed. So when you wear new boots and they're not scuffed up and you jump on carpet, it's like jumping on a sheet of ice.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm being all cool and everything, man. And I decided I'm going to jump up on the drum riser, never thinking one time about it, So I jumped up there, man, and my feet came out from under me, and I fell for what seemed like 30 minutes.
Oh, no.
Trashed the drums, knocked over cymbals. Somehow I never missed a note. I kept playing with my left hand. Somehow.
You're a professional.
I don't know how I did it. I don't know how I did it. It was like acrobatics at its finest.
Wonderful.
I don't know, man. And it happened so fast, and it was so embarrassing. And, of course, Lorrie is the coolest, man. She's one of the coolest people I ever got to work for, and I just love her. I still have a great relationship with her to this day. And that's one of them. And then, there are times like, getting to sit in the back of the bus after a gig with Billy Bob Thornton and picking his brain about how he made Sling Blade and where the characters came from and what it was like. And, there's so many moments in my life that I got to do that kind of stuff, that's thinking. And I don't really think about those things until somebody like you asks me about them. I got to play a Barbara Mandrell tribute at the Grand Ole Opry with Lorrie one time. And I'd never met Barbara, but I was a big fan. Growing up, I'm a fan of music, period. And so all those artists that my parents loved growing up, Barbara Mandrell, the Statler Brothers,
mm-hmm.
I got to work with so many. Barbara was watching us do sound check that day. She was at the event. And I can't even remember what song we were playing. It was one of her pop hits, like Sleeping Single in a Double Bed or something like that. But the bass part was pretty intricate, and I'd worked on it hard, to be sure that I played it well. And preparation, I can't say enough about preparation. If you want to be a musician, you've got to prepare well. So I prepped pretty well, and I was kind of nervous because Barbara was over there really watching, and it was a bit of a challenge. The thing we were playing was a bit of a challenge for me in particular. But we did a sound check, and it went really well. And, man, she beelined for me as soon as we finished playing the song. And I saw her out of the corner of my eye coming toward the stage, and I was like, oh God, she's headed to me,
mm-hmm.
And she came over and she goes, "Hi, I'm Barbara." And she stuck her hand out and she goes, "Son, you just played the hell out of that." And I was like, I didn't know what to say, but it was very sweet of her. She didn't have to do that, you know.
Awesome.
But there have been a lot of times like that, Rick, that I can't.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to kind of nail it down, but yeah, it's nice to just sit back after a long weekend of gigs and such like that, and go, do you remember that time that we played that particular gig, and the hotel didn't have our reservation, and we had to sleep out in the truck or whatever like that. I've had so many of those through the years. This show is actually a reboot of something that I had in the late '90s. And I'm just so glad to revive some of these memories and get a chance to talk to wonderful people like yourself. Like I said, we're going to include in the show notes the latest on the album. And it's called what? What's the name of the album going to be called, Dave?
Well, it's just the Artimus Pyle Band. We haven't even titled it.
Oh, no title yet. Okay.
It's a Lynyrd Skynyrd tribute record. We don't have a title yet. So I'll try to forward that to you.
Okay, no problem. The date of this recording, folks, we don't have that information, but it will be airing the first week of March, so it should have all the information in it. And any closing thoughts you'd like to impart with us, Dave, before we close up shop?
I would just encourage any young musicians that really want to do this, that the way to do it is how I did it, is just stay the course, set goals. Be realistic and take it a step at a time. You're not going to go just take over the world. Especially these days, our business is so jacked up with what it's become. I would just say set realistic short-term goals and one by one reach them and just keep pursuing your dream. I mean, I've gone into public speaking and public school systems for kids who want to pursue a career in the arts, and I really enjoy that because I really get to pour into their lives and share. Because when my mom was 13, she was shot at close range with a little boy playing with a shotgun, and she died 4 times. There's much more to the story, but I know we're out of time. But my mother lived. She's still with me. She's 82 years old. Saw her this morning, the doctor said if she lived, she would never have kids. Well, here I am, and I have 3 siblings, and everybody's healthy and fine, and so that tells me on a big level that I have a purpose, and I love sharing, and people are welcome to reach out to me if I can be a help or an inspiration. It's what I want the back half of my life to be about.
Awesome, very good. By the way, it's DaveFowler.com, right? That's your website.
That's right. And my email is the same. It's dave@davefowler.com.
All right, very good. Well, those will be in the show notes. And once again, the album is coming out in March. You got to check it out. If you are a Skynyrd fan, if you're a Dave Fowler fan, just make sure you check that out. Dave, I thank you so much for being on the show today. I know you've been a busy man. He's on his way to another gig. He's coming to your town. Look for it, okay? Dave, thanks again for being on the show, man. I do appreciate it. Be safe on the roads.
Thank you for asking me, man. I really appreciate being here.
Hi, this is Rick Anthony, thanking you again for listening to this episode of Someone You Should Know. Now, if you're an aspiring musician or an established musician that's looking for a little exposure, I invite you to drop us a line at someoneyoushouldknowpodcast@gmail.com. That's someoneyoushouldknowpodcast@gmail.com. Also, I invite you to tell a friend about the Someone You Should Know podcast. I thank you for tuning in this time, and I invite you to check us out next time on the Someone You Should Know podcast, because you never know who's going to show up. Until next time, remember, God loves you, and so do I.